Well, this is the Next Day Podcast, episode 72 with Mikel
And Tanyka.
where we have conversations on different topics. So today we're having a special Black History Month episode based on Black Panther. If you didn't check with us last year, we did a whole entire series of Black History Month. You guys can check that out last year. You can scroll down way down and just see those episodes. Is that
Mm-hmm.
right, Tanika?
Yep. Yep, that is what we did.
Mm-hmm.
I think we talked about like adventures, Black adventures. We talked about um the civil rights movement, the leaders of the civil rights movement, um, the unfortunate tragedy, but that did also help shape the civil rights movement. We have many different topics. Talked
Mm-hmm.
music, Black people in music as well. So we talked about a lot of different things. So we're going to be kind of following that kind of same thing, talking about, different topics of Black History
All
Month.
right, right.
And we're starting that off with the Black Panthers. So that's what we're
Okay.
doing.
All right.
All right.
Let's begin this episode.
All right. So Black Panther Party, which is an African American revolutionary party, was founded in 1966 in Oakland, California
Mm-hmm.
by Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seale. The party's original purpose was to patrol African American neighborhoods to protect residents from acts of police brutality. The Panthers eventually developed into a Marxist, I think is the right word here, revolutionary group that called the Arming of All African Americans. So everyone has the right to bear arms. I
Mm-hmm.
guess that's kind of what they're going for, which, the exception of the African Americans from the draft and from all sanctions of so-called white America, the release of all African Americans from jail, and the payment of compensation to African Americans for centuries of exploitation by white Americans. At its peak in the late 1960s, Panther membership exceeded 2,000, and the organization operated chapters in several major American cities.
Mm.
So landmark U.S. Supreme Court ruling in Brown versus Board of Education of Topeka, which was in 1954, African Americans living in cities throughout North America continued to suffer economic and social inequality. Poverty and reduced public services characterize these urban centers where residents were subject to poor living conditions, joblessness, chronic health problems, violence, and limited means to change their circumstances.
Mm.
That's where the systematic stuff kind of comes in, and I think is something um, many neighborhoods, especially in the States, are still dealing with today.
Mm.
Such conditions contributed to urban uprisings in the 1960s, such as those in the Watts district of Los Angeles in 1965. Uprisings in the 1960s and to the increased use of police violence as a measure to impose order on cities throughout North America. It was in this context and in the wake of the assassination of Malcolm X in 1965. If you want to know more information on Malcolm X, Mikel actually talked about him last year,
Yep,
right?
yes, we did.
Mm-hmm.
Check it out.
Yep. The Merritt Junior College students, Huey P. Newton and Bobby Seale, founded the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense on October 15th, 1966, in West Oakland, officially Western Oakland, a district of the city of Oakland, California. Shortening its name to the Black Panther Party, the organization immediately sought to set itself apart from African American cultural nationalist organizations such as the Universal Negro Improvement Association and the Nation of Islam, to which it was commonly compared. Although the groups shared certain philosophical, I'm fine, positions and tactical features, the the Black Panther Party and cultural nationalists differed on a number of basic
Mm-hmm.
points. For instance, whereas African American cultural nationalists generally regarded all white people as oppressors, the Black Panther Party distinguished between racist and non-racist whites and allied themselves with progressive members of the latter group, which is very true. Like if I'm thinking right now of a picture that I saw of two people who were in the Black Panthers, and they kind of did like the picture then, and then they kind of did a picture, when they were much older. One was a Black woman, one was a white woman. So I thought that was always kind of great, obviously. Um, Also, whereas cultural nationalists generally viewed all African Americans as oppressed, the Black Panther Party believed that African American capitalists and elites could and typically did exploit and oppress others, particularly the African American working class,
Right.
which is sad but true.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps most importantly, whereas cultural nationalists placed considerable emphasis on symbolic systems such as language and imagery as the means to liberate African Americans, the Black Panther Party believed that such systems, though important, are ineffective in bringing about liberation. It considered symbols as woefully inaccurate to, okay, this is a word that's going to be tough, ameliorat, I believe, ameliorat, the unjust material conditions such as a joblessness created by capitalism. From the outset, the Black Panther Party outlined a 10-point program, not unlike those of the Universal Negro Improvement Association and Nation of Islam, to initiate national African American community survival projects and to forge alliances with progressive white radicals and other organizations of people of color. A number of positions outlined in the 10-point program address the principal stance of the Black Panther Party. Economic exploitation is at the root of all oppression in the United States and abroad, and the abolition of capitalism is a precondition of social justice. In the 1960s, this socialist economic outlook, informed by Marxist political philosophy, resonated with other social movements in the United States and in other parts of the world. Therefore, even as the Black Panther Party found allies both within and beyond the borders of North America, the organization also found itself squarely in the crosshairs of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, and its counterintelligence program, COINTELPRO. Never heard of it. In fact, in 1969, FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover, never heard of him, considered the Black Panther Party the greatest threat to national security. J. Edgar Hoover sucks. We all know this already. But
Mm-hmm.
anyways, the Black Panther Party came into the national spotlight in May 1967 when a small group of its members, led by its chair, Seal, marched fully armed into the California State Legislature in Sacramento. Emboldened by the view that African Americans had a constitutional right to bear arms, of course they do, based on the Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, the Black Panther Party marched on the body as a protest against the pending Mulford Act. The Black Panther Party viewed legislation, a gun control bill, by the way, as a political maneuver to thwart the organization's effort to combat police brutality in the Oakland community, which, I mean, I don't know how I feel. Maybe at the time that could have been what the issue, what the idea was. Whatever your views are on gun control, I'm of the, I don't know why anyone needs to bear the rights of arms, but I'm a Canadian, so sorry. But it's just guns do more problems than good. So anyway, Um, the images of gun-toting Black Panthers entering the Capitol were supplemented later that year with news of Newton's arrest after a shootout with police in which an officer was killed. Ooh. With this newfound publicity, the Black Panther Party grew from an Oakland-based organization into an international one with chapters in 48 states in North America and support groups in Japan, China,
Mhm.
France, England, Germany, Sweden, Mozambique, never heard of that, South Africa, Zimbabwe, Uruguay, and elsewhere. Like they spread.
Wow,
Yeah, I never
that's
knew that.
crazy. The message spread.
Not even just so much like the message spread, but then they also have the organizations in all these different countries, which I did not know.
This is like before the internet. Like, how did
Yeah,
like did
yeah.
they just like you know
I
airplane
don't,
through
I don't
airplane? But
know.
yeah,
I really, well, I mean, there's some newspapers and stuff like that, right?
yeah, that too.
Um, and
But yeah, true.
people that this as I still do, travel wherever the news is, right? Um, but this is why, like, this is kind of a little bit off topic, kind of, but in that fact of this is before the internet, this is before, whatever. I remember, I don't know if you've seen this, but I've seen this on Facebook where they kind of talk about the difference between Taylor Swift and Michael Jackson in terms of the crowd that they can create at their
Yes, yes,
concerts.
yeah.
And what people don't realize is if I always ask the question, and I think everyone should, and this is not to say anything against Taylor Swift, but would Taylor Swift have the fandom that she currently has if she came from a time that Michael Jackson came from? That man did what he did, filled up arenas the way he did
Hmm.
without the internet being what it is, without Spotify, without all of these different things, not TikTok, you know, he became popular during a time where that was just non-existent.
I
Taylor Swift, on the other hand, has that advantage of having the internet
hmm
and her music spreading in the way it does. Because don't forget, Michael Jackson's spread wasn't just in North America. That man
Mhm.
was he's still loved in Japan.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, you know what I mean? Like back in the 60s, 70s, 80s,
yeah.
it just wasn't that's nuts.
Hmm.
So it's kind of what you're saying. It's like, how does that kind of spread like that without the internet? Because now we have
Yeah,
social media. Now we have
yeah,
the internet.
yeah,
That wasn't a thing then.
yeah, yeah. Like you said, like newspaper, and possibly they traveled, like the
Yeah.
original Black Panther probably traveled like worldwide to spread the
Yeah.
message
Yeah.
towards people.
Which
Um,
happens, obviously.
yeah, that happens.
Yeah.
And yeah, like if like not Facebook, but if like social media was there at its time, I think the Black Panther Party would be a lot bigger, in my opinion.
Of
I think.
course, but that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
How big they were, how big they did become
yeah,
without the internet.
yeah.
That's crazy. We have to kind of give them or give any person who can have that kind of reach without the internet
Mhm.
their props because I think what people were kind of trying to say, but I mean, it's not fair because this is not for the times we're in, but it's kind of like cheating, I guess, in a sense of, well, you have the internet, now you have YouTube. Like Justin Bieber's discovered on YouTube. That was not a thing.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, hell, I don't even think that's really much of a thing now either,
Mhm.
but during the time of Justin Bieber becoming who he is today,
Mhm.
that was a big thing. But
Yeah,
that wasn't something that existed even
yeah,
5 years prior.
yeah,
So it's like the times change, but
yeah.
it's like you have to give those gold stars to those people who did not have that.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like you just didn't have that. Um, so I mean,
I know. Well, going off topic, I also do think like Taylor Swift would have survived during the Michael Jackson era, in my
May,
opinion.
but that's what I'm trying to say. I don't know if she would have or wouldn't have.
Yeah,
Um, personally, okay, don't come for me, Swifties. I'm
yeah,
not
yeah,
trying
yeah,
to
yeah.
disrespect. Taylor Swift is not at the level of those people who
Mm,
gave her the chance to be who she is today. I'm sorry, she just isn't.
mm,
Um, I think, does she have a good message for certain, people and young girls? Yes, I'm not debating
mm,
that, but I'm talking about the talent.
mm,
I'm sorry, guys, she's not the greatest singer. I've heard better. She's not the worst, but she's not the greatest.
mm,
I think her songwriting can be sometimes mediocre, not all the time. Because again, like, I feel like
mm,
when she first came on the scene, I'm like, her music was good. Like, I didn't have anything against it. And again, I still want to say this, being a songwriter is really, really tough. So I want to say, like, she does something that
yeah,
most
yeah,
singers just don't do.
yeah.
But of the songwriters of today that we have,
Mm,
honestly, it's like, I wouldn't even say Megan Trainor. She's not a bad singer. She's
mm,
not a bad songwriter.
mm,
But sometimes some people are better songwriters than they are singers. And I think that stands for Megan Trainor even. Really, I think the only person who's a good singer and a good songwriter is Bruno Mars of today.
mm.
But it's just like, I don't know if her music today would have resonated back in the 70s or 80s because, like, I feel like music back then is just
Right.
20 times better than what it is today. And I'm sorry, that also includes Taylor Swift. So
Mm.
that's just me. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Don't hate me.
Yeah, it's your opinion.
Yeah, no,
It's your
I
opinion.
listen, I'm still listening to Taylor Swift like everybody else.
Yeah.
But if I were to choose someone who I'd rather listen to, who is also a good songwriter, who's also a good singer of today's generation, it's 1,000% hands down Bruno Mars for me. He's a great songwriter, great singer. That is who I always turn to because I think his music's incredible. You always have the stupid songs, and he does have the stupid songs for sure, but he's just hands down way better at what he does
Yeah.
than she is. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at with that.
Okay.
But
Mm-hmm.
let's get back to Black History Month because I feel a lot safer here. So,
Mm-hmm.
in addition to challenging police brutality, the Black Panther Party launched more than 35 survival programs and provided community help, such as education, tuberculosis testing, which I guess was still a thing back then. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Legal aid, transportation assistance, ambulance service, and the manufacture and distribution of free shoes to poor people. Of particular note was the Free Breakfast for Children program, which began in January of 1969, that spread to every major American city with a Black Panther Party chapter. The federal government had introduced a similar pilot program in 1966, but arguably in response to the Panthers initiative, extended the program
Mm-hmm.
and then made it permanent in 1975, undoubtedly to the chagrin of Mr. Hoover there. Notwithstanding the services that Black Panther Party provided, the FBI declared the group a communist organization, which is interesting, and an enemy of the US government. Why? Because there's a bunch of black people doing for black people? Like, come on. But this is the part, like, it's interesting for me because I always thought that the Black Panthers were like this bad organization and did no good for black people. It's really not true. It's just because the white people are just a little threatened by black people, trying to put shit on its head a little bit.
Right.
Um, Hoover had pledged that 1969 would be the last year of the Black Panther Party and devoted the resources of the FBI through COINTELPRO toward that end. In a protracted program against the Black Panther Party, COINTELPRO used Agent provocators, sabotage, misinformation, and lethal force to eviscerate the national organization.
Mhm.
The FBI's campaign culminated in December 1969 with a 5-hour police shootout at the Southern California headquarters of the Black Panther Party, and an Illinois State Police raid in which Chicago Black Panther leader Fred Hampton was killed. He was murdered. Let's just call it what it is. He was murdered by the FBI. The measures employed by the FBI were so extreme that years later, when they were revealed, the director of the agency publicly apologized for wrongful uses of power. Or how about abuses of power? You know, I think that's kind of more what this is, but
Yeah.
anyway, just pure racism. In the early 1970s, radical scholar and activist Angela Davis became widely associated with the Black Panthers, though it seems likely that she never actually became a standing member of the party.
All right.
Davis did, however, have strong connections with the party and taught political education classes for it. She initially gained notoriety in 1970 when then Governor of California, Ronald Reagan, led the Board of Regents in refusing to renew Davis's appointment as a lecturer in philosophy at the
Mhm.
University of California, Los Angeles, because of her politics and her association with communists. Let's not get it twisted. Ronald Reagan is a racist. Or was, I don't think he's alive. I don't care. At about the same time, Davis became involved in the case of 3 African American inmates at Soledad Prison who had been accused of murdering a guard. She became deeply involved with one of the inmates, George Jackson, whose younger brother's attempt on August 7th, 1970, to win Jackson's release by taking hostages in the Marin County Courthouse went violently awry. I'm just going to say, doing something like holding people hostage in order to get someone out of prison is not the way to go. I'm
Agree.
just throwing it
100%.
out there.
Yeah.
Um, four deaths resulted, and when at least one of the guns proved to be registered to Davis, she fled charges of conspiracy, kidnapping, and murder, going underground and entering the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives list before being captured by about weeks to 8 weeks later, after becoming a cause celebre for the radical left.
Mm.
Ultimately, she was acquitted of all of the charges against her by an all-white jury, that's interesting. From the mid 1970s through the 80s, the activities of the Black Panther Party all but ceased. Although COINTELPRO contributed to its demise, the dissolution of the party's leadership also contributed to the downfall of the organization. Kathleen Cleaver earned a law degree and took an appointment as a professor. After returning from exile in Cuba, Newton was killed in a drug dispute in August of 1989, perishing in an alley in the West Oakland, not far from where he and Seal had founded the first Black Panther Party chapter. Elridge Cleaver designed clothes for the 1970s and 80s before joining the Anti-Communist Unification Church on a route to becoming a born-again Christian and a registered member of the Republican Party. From its founding in 1966, the influence of the Black Panther Party assumed a transnational character that went beyond the creation of support groups for the organization. Activists in Australian urban centers, for example, incorporated the works of Black Panther Party members into their social movements. The oppressed Dalits in India emulated the rhetoric of the Black Panthers, and the representatives of the Vietnamese National Liberation Front, who called themselves the Yellow Panthers. That feels racist. I feel kind of gross saying that. Anyways, they named themselves, it's fine. Also used the organization as a model. Closer to the United States, the Vanguard Party in the Bahamas closely studied the Black Panther Party, drew on its political philosophy, adopted its use of in uniforms and his 10-point program and published the newspaper Vanguard, whose scope and format mirrored the Black Panther Party's newspaper, Black Panther, to shape its program of activism.
Mm.
Even decades after the founding of the organization, the Black Panther Party survived in the public imagination in the United States as a result of the publication of a number of memoirs by its members and the use of its rhetoric and rap music. In 1990, Milwaukee Alderman Michael McGee, a former Black Panther Party member, sought to resurrect the organization when he formed the Black Panther Militia in response to the neglect of his community by local politicians and business leaders. The militia inspired other chapters and eventually became the new Black Panther Party under the leadership of community activist Aaron Michaels. By 1998, Khalid Abdul Muhammad, the former national spokesperson for the Chicago-based Nation of Islam, had assumed the de facto leadership of the organization when he led a group of shotgun and rifle-toting Black Panther Party members to Jasper, Texas. This sounds bad. In the wake of the murder of James Byrd Jr., a 49-year-old African American man who had been, a trigger warning, dragged behind a pickup truck by three members of the Ku Klux Klan. I'm going to say this again. This was back in 1998. That is not that long ago.
Yeah. 1998.
1998.
Mm.
Yeah. I
Going back,
am never going to Texas.
yeah. Going back to what you were saying, like,
Hmm.
what made the name racist to you? Like, you said, like,
The yellow, because that's what people will kind of say about Asian people in general, that like they're yellow. And
yeah.
it just feels kind of it always felt really icky to me.
Mhm.
Like I don't know if it's necessarily a racist term to call someone that, but it's kind of like just I mean, people do it. I've even been guilty of doing it, but kind of referring to like Indian people or anyone of Indian descent as brown people. It's not good. So it's just kind of like it's kind of more about that for me. It's just not. It's just feels mm, not moral to kind of refer. Like, I know it seems weird just because like we're black, we refer to ourselves as black,
Mhm.
but it's kind of always been like you got to be really. I would never go up to like an Indian person and say, "Oh, you're brown." I just wouldn't do that, or
Yeah.
go up to an Asian person and say, "You're yellow." Like I just would never do that. You know, even there's even native people. They also are referred to by color, and I'm not going to repeat it, but it kind of just, it doesn't feel right to kind of do that, you know?
Yeah.
Does that make
I see.
sense?
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
So, would you refer the Black Panther as the Panthers or
Well, no,
just
because I know it seems weird, but
yeah,
we are known as Black people. That is,
yeah,
that is what we refer to ourselves as. That isn't necessarily being racially insensitive.
right.
But referring to other people when that's not, you wouldn't go to someone who is Vietnamese and say you're yellow. You're going to refer to them as either Vietnamese or Asian,
I see.
right? Whereas with Black people, you can refer to them as their background, where they come from, but nine times out of 10, you are going to refer to that person as Black. And that's not
Mm.
racially insensitive. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I know it seems weird, but even referring to white people, that's not racially insensitive because that is something we know they call themselves and we call them that, and it's fine. You can also say Caucasian, but it's just, I feel like anything else, it just feels racially insensitive. Not necessarily racist, but just racially insensitive. That's my views on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's fine.
Um, so the new Black Panther Party also became known to the public through the Million Youth March it first organized in New York in 1998. Two groups and labeled the new Black Panther Party as a racist and anti-Semitic hate group, which maybe. Members of the new Black Panther Party, however, were unapologetic and similarly rejected such condemnation, contending that they only took up the struggle for social justice and freedom that the original Black Panther Party had failed to sustain,
Right.
which I don't know if I necessarily agree with. Um, because I guess, like, if to me, if you're going and like the Black Panthers, I feel like the original Black Panthers, yes, they would call to action if something were to have happened to somebody, but they kind of did it for the most part peacefully. But I feel like if you're going into Jasper, Texas after someone unfortunately killed by the KKK with, weapons of your own, that doesn't feel necessarily peaceful anymore, you know? So freedoms, sure, I understand, but there's ways to go about that, better ways to go about that than with force with weapons of your own, because no one responds to that.
Mm.
Just no one responds to that, especially if you're going into Jasper, Texas. You're going into Texas? Yeah, no. No Texas official is going to take that very lightly. And listen, you don't want to go into Texas and start killing people, you will be killed yourself. They don't care. They will put you to death. They don't care. They don't think twice. I'm just saying. So I would never commit a crime in Texas.
Yeah,
I just
no,
would not.
I would not either. That's crazy.
No, no, no.
Yeah.
I like my life. So, anyways, that's basically it for Black Panthers.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So this ends this episode 72 of the Next Tape podcast. The Next Tape podcast is available now on all podcast platforms. We also have a website called Tanyka.
hmm It's next take podcast dot podcast page dot io, believe is what it is.
Yeah.
It is in the show notes.
Okay. And as well as where else are we at, Tanika?
On Facebook and Instagram at Next Take Podcast and Twitter and TikTok at Next Take Pod.
All right. You can contact us on an email at mikeltanika@gmail.com. That is mikeltanika@gmail.com. So we talked about Black Panther, everything about Black Panther
hmm
on our Black History Month episode. Uh yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much Tanika just like, gave us a uh not I don't think the full story, but like just a gist of like what the Black Panther stand for and who
Yeah,
they
there's a lot more, especially
yeah.
on Britannica, if you where I got a lot of my information. If you want to dive in deeper, you definitely can.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, Britannica is where I got my stuff from, which is great. And it's but if you want to dig deeper, there's more for you to
Okay.
read
Yep.
if you want to.
Yep. Okay.
All
So,
right. So next
yes.
week, full next week,
Yeah,
we
next week.
are going to be talking about my president, your president, Barack Obama.
Nice. Great. Awesome.
Yeah, I don't claim any other president. Sorry. He's my president. So here you
Yeah.
go. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So can't wait for that episode. I'm sure others can't wait for that episode.
Yeah.
All right. So I am Mikel and
And I'm Tanika.
we're out until next week.
We are.
Okay, okay, good. Peace
Okay.
out.
Bye.